In this video, I'm gonna give you a full comprehensive list of amazing games you can play when you are bored. And the main thing I've looked at here is games you can basically play forever. There's no set storylines, you can only play for 20 hours and then you're done with it. So we're looking primarily at replayability. And of course also a fun factor. The first game on the list is Terraria. Terraria is a game that has a whole world to explore. You mine, build, craft, fish and fight to progress through the game. You can either choose to focus on fighting enemies and improving your gear to fight various bosses, or you can focus on building houses and buildings and making things look pretty. So Terraria has something for everyone. It has a combination of survival, fighting, exploration and building aspects that is very satisfying to play. You can choose difficulty yourself, so you want it easy or hard, making it suitable for every player. It is also very easy to set up multiplayer so you can play with your friends. It also runs really smoothly even on low-end PCs. And it's also very cheap for the amount of hours you can get into it. The next game on the list is Ark Survival Evolved. Now it is similar to Terraria in the fact it's also a survival game, although in this one you're playing first person, and I would say the game is way harder in general. In Ark you start in nude on a beach in an unknown world filled with dinosaurs. It is then your job to gear up your character, build massive bases and of course also tame dinosaurs. And that's where it differs from a lot of other survival games, is the dinosaur aspect. Like many other survival games, you gotta take care of yourself, you gotta get food, water and basic supplies, and there's nothing more terrifying than standing, hitting a tree, suddenly turning around and there's a T-Rex in your face. This game will give you a lot of jump scares in a good way, and this is personally one of my most played games. And you can have hundreds if not thousands of hours in this game and still explore new things. The next game on the list is Satisfactory. Much like Factorio, it is all about setting up an automatic factory producing stuff for you. To start off early game with mining iron with your hands, and as you progress later on, you make machines that mine it for you. And then you also make machines that create this iron into other parts. So for instance, a piece of iron can become an iron rod, an iron plate, and you of course don't want to make this by hand. So you set up an entire factory producing these, and then later on the complexity takes up to a new level and you have to craft machinery, motors, even nuclear fuel rods. So Satisfactory is all about setting up a factory producing stuff for you. And it becomes completely ridiculous at some point in terms of how many machines you need. So if you love base building, if you love automation, if you love doing math and logistics, this game will definitely be for you. Also, the game looks fantastic and the exploring is so much fun. The next game on the list is Garry's Mod. Now Garry's Mod is a combination of a lot of different games. It is a lot more like a sandbox than an actual game. And you have thousands of different game modes in this you can play. You can even make your own stuff and publish it to the workshop. So if you want to show off your builds, your creativity, if you want to make entire maps and game modes for others to enjoy, you can also do that. So if you like creating stuff or you like exploring other people's creations, you will definitely enjoy Garry's Mod. And you will never run out of things to do in this game. The next game on the list is Valheim. Now when this game released in early access, it blew up. The game is incredible, it is easy to pick up and very complex as well later on. Valheim is a survival game set in a Viking setting. So it is your job to set up a base, get basic resources put together, and then fight monsters and even bosses. So if you're looking for a survival game that does it a bit different than most games, then Valheim is definitely for you. The visuals are amazing, the atmosphere is fantastic, and the soundtrack is super immersive. You can easily get hundreds of hours in this game. The next game is also a free-to-play game, and that is Unturned. Unturned is a survival game, but this time also based in a zombie apocalypse. You spawn in randomly on a map, and it's then your job to find weapons and supplies to survive the zombies. As you progress through the game, you get experience points and can then be used for upgrades. You have a lot of places you can go to and explore. You can for instance go to a cabin or a military base. You can also choose to PvP versus other players and steal their loot, or you could choose to team up with them if you so desire. But Unturned is an amazing free-to-play game. If you haven't tried it already, I highly recommend it. The next game on the list is PUBG. Now when this game launched, it blew up, and for good reason. There's not a progression in terms of you can play the same character in the same game over and over. Every time you start the game, you will start off in a new round. You'll parachute down to a random part of the map, and it's then your job to gear out yourself, grab supplies and then get ready to fight. There'll be hundreds of players also on the map close to you, and the last person stands win. It is all about thinking tactically, getting into a good position and start taking people out. You can also play it with your friends, which of course is amazing. It differs from other shooters in the fact that this is more of a realistic game. The maps are way larger, the guns are more realistic in terms of their recoil. You have bullet drop as well when you're sniping from afar. So if you want to shoot it with some realism, this game is definitely for you. The next game on the list is Elite Dangerous. The size of this game will humble you. It is probably one of the biggest games I've ever played in my life, and of course it is in space. So it's an online game where you start off in space in a very small little spaceship, and the main objective here is to become the biggest and the baddest space pioneer out there. This is done by completing missions, gathering resources, or taking out other players. Because the game is all about making money. So you choose whether if you want to spend your time collecting resources and getting your money that way, or if you want to go over and kill the guy who just harvests the resource and then steal his money. You will get hundreds of hours in this game, great content, and lots of things to explore for sure. The next game is Stardew Valley. This is the kind of game you play when you just want to chill out. There's nothing to stress about, there's nothing you have to get done. You just spawn in and then you make your own little farm. You farm and harvest crops, you dig for minerals in the mine shaft. You can already tell just by the way the game looks, it's a very relaxed and chill game. But you can still get hundreds of hours in this game by being creative and make your own perfect farm. The next is Farming Simulator. Now there's a lot of similar games out there. You have Euro Truck Simulator, Surgeon Simulator, etc. But my favorite one is by far Farming Simulator. And the name already tells you what it's about. It's about making your own farm, planting and harvesting crops, setting up fields and buying animals. And the more you play, the more money you earn. You can of course buy bigger and better equipment that allows you to farm even more stuff. Great game, great value. There's also quite a few funny bugs in there, where sometimes your machines will go flying, and it's just hysterical. Highly recommend. The next game on the list is of course Minecraft. There's probably not a single person on this earth that hasn't heard about Minecraft, but they're still updating the game regularly. It is still a great game with great value, and of course also a lot of mods as well. But if you haven't tried the base game of Minecraft recently, I would highly recommend it, as they've changed it a lot over the years and add a lot of content to it. And it's definitely a great game if you like survival games or general games where you can be creative. And the next game is a very, very well-known game, and that is of course Skyrim. Skyrim remains a masterpiece today due to its countless interesting storylines, engaging combat, and stunning world building. Skyrim, one of those games that every other game company looks to and tries to copy in some sort of way to make a fantastic game. Also, the amount of mods you can get for this game is fantastic. You can play through the storyline hundreds of different times with mods that make it very different. So if you have still not played Skyrim to this day, go play it now. Next game on the list is Counter-Strike. Now, Counter-Strike is of course a classic shooter. You can easily play this game for thousands of hours and still enjoy it. It's a game where the more you play it, the better you become in it, the more fun you also have. It is super easy to get into and has a lot of complexity as well. And there's a lot of different tactics that you can use. If you have Counter-Strike and you haven't played in a while, I highly recommend trying it again now. Next game on the list is of course World of Warcraft. You cannot have one of these lists without World of Warcraft. And you of course have both retail and classic WoW. But WoW is of course the most known MMO. And there is unlimited amount of hours in terms of both PvE, PvP content. Also for completionists, it can take thousands of hours to collect mounts, pets, or even get all achievement points. You can play this game for a decade non-stop and still have a ton of stuff yet to explore. Next game on the list is Rocket League. I have personally had a lot of hours in this. I have a lot of fun with it. It is a PvP game, but it does it very differently to other games. It is not about shooting each other. It is about getting a ball into a goal. Now, it sounds very simple and boring, but it is a lot of fun, and there's a lot of techniques and tactics to learn in here. It's a simple game to pick up and play, but it can take hundreds, if not thousands of hours to be good at it. It's also a great game to play with friends, so I highly recommend playing Rocket League if you haven't tried it already. Next game is Path of Exile. Now, Path of Exile is by far known as the most complex and most difficult ARPG game to master. If you like other ARPGs like Diablo, but you haven't tried Path of Exile yet, I would highly recommend it. Path of Exile is one of those games where you can play for 1,000 hours and people will still call you a beginner at it. That is how complex the game is, and they update the game every 3 months with a new league that adds even more gameplay and content. So if you can ignore that the graphics are maybe a bit subpar, the gameplay absolutely makes up for it and is a very, very solid game. Next game on the list is Overwatch. You have probably played it or heard of it, but it's still a game with great fun in it. It's a PvP game, but unlike something like Counter-Strike, in Overwatch you don't just use guns. You can play as multiple different classes that have different utilities and skill sets. You play as 6v6 and you have support, DPS, and tanks. And then it's your job to either defend or capture a different objective from the other team. It's a solid game with potential for a lot of hours in it. There's lots of different characters so you don't get bored of it. Would highly recommend it if you haven't tried it recently. Now, next game is a bit of a golden nugget. I highly doubt that most people know about this game, but it's called Human Fall Flat. This game is a lot smaller than all the other games on this list, but it is personally a game I have probably had the most fun with, at least in terms of hours played. Now, Human Fall Flat is all about solving puzzles and completing challenges. It's a very basic game in terms of running around, figuring out how to get to the next part. This could either by placing a block a certain place, powering up a machine with an item that is hidden, or diving into a massive hole to uncover what's down there. This game is fantastic with friends, and if you haven't played it yet, I highly recommend it, especially if you have at least 1 or 2 friends to play this with. It is not a game with a lot of hours in it. You can maybe get 20 or 30 hours in it, but the amount of times you will cry from laughter by trolling your friends is absolutely worth it. Make sure you don't start playing at 10 p.m. at night, because otherwise you're not going to go to bed until next morning. Highly recommend this game, big personal favorite of mine. The next game on the list is of course Dota 2. You could also argue that League of Legends should be here, but I've chosen Dota 2 instead. It's a free-to-play MOBA game where you're playing 5v5. Before each round, you all choose a hero that has certain abilities, and then you go in and try and defeat the opposing enemy. Very simple and easy to pick up, also free to play. You can play this game your entire life and never get bored of it. If you haven't tried Dota 2 yet, highly recommend it. The next game on the list is Lost Ark. Lost Ark is a free-to-play action RPG MMO. This game will provide you with hundreds of hours of exploring new lands, seeking out treasure, and fighting monsters and bosses. Just like other MMOs, it's all about powering up your character. This is done by gathering gear and resources to make yourself stronger and get better gear. And this is done by slaying monsters and bosses. If you haven't tried Lost Ark yet, I highly recommend it. And it's also free to play, and you can get hundreds if not thousands of hours in this game easily. Next game on the list is Apex Legends. This is a free to play multiplayer battle royale shooter. And just like PUBG, you'll spawn in on a big open map, and it's then down to kill all others. Last man standing wins. And there's a reason why this game is one of the most played Steam games ever. The gameplay is fantastic, fast paced, with lots of great quality content in there. If you haven't tried it yet, highly recommend it. And of course, for the last game on this list, we have Final Fantasy. The entire franchise of Final Fantasy is probably the best franchise ever made, and specifically Final Fantasy 14 Online is amazing. Some would argue it is the best MMO out there. It has great music, a dungeons, story, and awesome community. It is noob friendly, it has a ton of content, has multiple classes. You are never rushed into the game mode. You can always choose what you want to play as and what content you want to do. And the community is also fantastic. Players are super friendly, super helpful. You can easily play this game for thousands of hours. So if you like MMO games overall, but you haven't tried Final Fantasy 14 yet, you need to try this game right now. It is fantastic. If you feel like I missed out on certain games in this list, make sure to post them down below in the comments. Also like the video and subscribe for more future content. Thanks for watching. Peace out.